Welcome to the Yoga Connection with Zorananda. The Yoga Connection is a deep dive into everything yoga. Follow along with Zorananda and his guests as they discuss yoga history, spirituality, different practices, and the many misconceptions that have followed along throughout the years of yogic tradition. Hello and welcome to the Yoga Connection. My name is Zorananda. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. I'm solo in this episode today. I'm going into the fourth Prana Vayu, the Vyan Vayu. This winter has been a bit challenging for me. I've been sick almost every single month, so I've been doing my best to stay on track with releasing episodes somewhat weekly, but when I'm getting chest congestion and not really feeling too well, it's kind of hard to sit down and have the energy and the motivation to record without coughing into the mic and stuff like that. So I'm finally feeling better, and I'm going to get into this episode, which will be a little bit different than the past Vayu ones, and we'll see in a moment here. So I'll get right into the script and right into the information, because this one is going to be much more term heavy, specifically Sanskrit term heavy, but bear with me and we'll get through this and you'll learn a lot of cool information about this particular Vayu. So it's easy to talk about the Vayus in a general way, and that's largely what you'll find on the internet. Luckily, with a little bit of effort, you can find genuine texts on the internet that mention or discuss the Prana Vayus. So in the last 3 episodes, I made connections to the Vayus in a scientific way by finding articles and studies that make at least some kind of correlation between what yogis have said in the past about the attributes of the Vayus with what modern science has discovered about the human body and mind. This time, I want to do something a bit different. I have scoured the internet to find original sources of where the Prana Vayus are mentioned. I managed to find 3 texts that either mention the Prana Vayus or describe each one. I think it's important for me as a conveyor of this information to indicate where exactly I'm getting this information from. And as a yogi, it's my responsibility to uphold the scholars and yogis of the past, specifically from India, as the authority on accurately explaining and translated yogic knowledge. And what I have found as authentic sources are the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Giranda Samhita, and this one's a little bit of a mouthful, Tirumantiram. And so these are 3 traditional texts that span throughout time, and each text is a bit different. The Hatha Yoga Pradipika and the Giranda Samhita are Bihar books that come from the Shivananda Foundation. And they are complete guides on all the practices within Hatha Yoga. And the Hatha Yoga Pradipika is very extensive, and from what I've gathered is that the Giranda Samhita is a sort of response to the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, where the author Swami, again another mouthful of a name, Niranjananda Saraswati, adds variations to some techniques and expresses the nature of samadhi in his understanding. The Tirumantiram is a collection of poems by Tirumular, and I have Wikipedia here just as a source that explains the Tirumantiram as a, quote, Tamil poetic work written either in the 6th century CE or post-10th century CE by Tirumular. It is the 10th of the 12 volumes of the Tirumurai, the key text of Shaiva Siddhanta, and the first known Tamil work to use the term. The Tirumatiram is the earliest known exposition of the Shaiva Gamas in Tamil. It consists of over 3,000 verses dealing with various aspects of spirituality, ethics, and praise of Shiva, but it is more spiritual than religious, and one can see the difference between Vedanta and Siddhanta from Tirumular's interpretation of the Mahavakyas. So with that said, what I found is that the Hatha Yoga Pradipika explains the Prana Vayus in detail. However, the Vedanta Samhita only mentions the Vayus when explaining the effects of different pranayamas. Likewise, with the Tirumatiram, only mentions the Vayus in a poem, however states that there are 10 Vayus. And I managed to find a pretty cool website that explains what the other 5 Prana Vayus are. And so from this website called Babaji's Kriya Yoga, the author states, in addition to these 5 Pancha Prana, there are 5 supporting Upa Pranas, which manifest as physiological functions of nerves and automatic responses such as belching, blinking, and allows for vision, sneezing and coughing, yawning and sleeping, producing phlegm, and decomposition after death. And as always, I'll have links to all the articles that I find in the description of this episode. So looping back for a second to what I said earlier, the internet can have some very basic information about the Prana Vayus. There are dozens and dozens of yoga websites that reiterate themselves over and over again. So I'm just going to take a drink of water. Give me a sec. So I feel that it's my duty to do one better and dig into as much as I can to explain what the Vayus are in a way that you won't necessarily find on those typical yoga websites. So with that said, those are the sources that I'll be using from those 3 texts. So let's get into the Vyan Vayu. The translation website, Tamil Cube, defines Vyana as, quote, that which is diffused throughout the whole body, or the prana that holds prana and apana together and produces circulation in the body. Another way it was explained to me by my teacher, Yoga Rishi Vishwaketu, is that Vyana is the expansive force that allows for pranic flow to reach outwards. So it seems there are 2 predominant actions that Vyana makes. One, circulating and holding upon and prana together, and a rebound outward. So we're just going to focus on the circulating part for right now. In the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, there's a small section that describes the Vayus. Nonetheless, it's a suitable reference, and it's something closest to the traditional way to understand the Vayus. So I have the book here, and I'm just going to read directly from it, just to get a good idea of what these traditional works say about the Prana Vayus. So there are 5 main Vayu functions known as Apana Prana, Samana, Udana, and Vyana. They are the different processes and manifestations of the one Vayu, just as the various limbs of a man comprise the one body. Pranic absorption takes place on a major scale in the thoracic region and is the function of Prana Vayu. Elimination takes place largely through the urinary, excretory, and reproductive organs and is powered by Apana. In between Apana and Prana, in the stomach region, is the area of assimilation, which is the function of Samana. Movement in the throat and facial expressions are due to Udana. Circulation is powered by Vyana, which pervades the whole body. So it seems they're all agreeing on one thing, especially with Vyana, that circulation is powered by Vyana. And so the next kind of sections just reiterate the functions. And the interesting thing here is in the Samana podcast that I did, Samana Vayu, I talked a lot about Wim Hof, and it kind of resurfaces as a good example here as well. So the Wim Hof study that I talked about in the Samana Vayu episodes can apply here as well. And what can be indicated is that Saman and Vyan Vayus are at play here together. The breath work is stimulating Saman, which in effect causes the pranic flow tied to blood circulation, produces an increase in temperature that prevents the cold air to influence the body's core temperature. So it seems that Vyan Vayu is more of a supportive Vayu in this case. And in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, it says it here as well, that from the Maitri Upanishads, says Samana is the higher form of Vyana, and between them is the production of Udana that brings up or carries down what is being drunk or eaten is Udana. So, however, Vyan plays an important role regarding movement of the body as well. So the information I found about the Pranavayus in the Chudamadiram comes from this website, and specifically just says Vyana Vayu pervades the whole body and is the power of movement. Vyana governs the relaxation and contraction of all muscles, voluntary and involuntary, as well as the movement of the joints and structures around them in the physical body. So it seems like as a system, the Vayus are not only connecting into your pranic body and your energetic system, but they're connecting into your physiology as well. And that why doing an asana practice is just as important as having a breathwork practice or a meditation practice, is that when you're doing the asana practice and you're doing the movements, you're going to be affecting the pranavayus in particular ways. So say in this case with Vyan Vayu, because it's working with circulation, that the asana practice and the movement, and particularly vigorous movement, is going to have an effect not only on the circulation system, but on the muscles and the tendons and everything. And that's obvious, right? It's just like if you're working out, if you're overweight and you've been sedentary almost your entire life, your muscles and your body are going to be in a weakened state, in a lethargic state, and introducing working out is going to change how your body functions. So it's going to change how your circulation works, it's going to change how your muscles work, and you're going to see a transformation take place. So makes sense considering our muscles wouldn't be able to move without constant blood flow, right? So the Gheranda Samhita, meaning Gheranda's collection, is a dialogue between Gherand and Chanda. So these are two people. So the Gheranda is a person. And the source where I found information on the Vayus is from a commentary by Swami Niranjanananda Saraswati. So that's the Bihar book. I found one line that mentions Vyan Vayu, namely the inner energy or the body temperature is related to Vyan. So that's a really interesting thing, because you got to remember that these books are really old, right? So to think that these swamis and like Garand and Chanda, they're having these conversations, and particularly they're indicating that in this case the Vyan Vayu has to do with body temperature. And so I made a little interesting connection here. So the interesting point is that the Giranda Samhita was written in the 17th century, so it was 1600s. However, the knowledge of the Prana Vayus is much older than that. It comes from as far back as the Upanishads, which is like almost around BCE, before Common Era. And the Giranda Samhita also details the importance of Patanjali Sutras and Ashtanga Yoga, which comes from that like older era. So knowledge of Vyan Vayu as a mechanism to control circulation has been known for quite a long time. What's fascinating is that the discovery of the circulatory system scientifically happened in 1628 by William Harvey. So in two very different parts of the world, one Western, one Eastern, the function of the circulatory system was written about and systematized, mind you, in two very different ways. So out of the two, I'd agree that William Harvey's discovery was much more revealing and precise, scientifically speaking. However, what I can appreciate is the fact that the two different cultures have understandings of the circulatory system in their own right. The yogic method, however, strives to put the circulatory system to use in a way that enables a sensitivity of the nervous system's nature that is out of the norm of typical autonomic functioning. And a perfect example of this, again, is Wim Hof and his study testing his breathing techniques, where cold and hot temperatures were withstood and a dead E. coli bacteria was neutralized without external interventions. So if you haven't, go listen to the Samana podcast that I did. I go into great detail about Wim Hof's studies that he did. And even so, you can just Google Wim Hof and his E. coli study, and you'll get all the information. It's all there. You know, I'm not doing anything really special with looking this stuff up. I'm just Googling it, and there's the NCBI scientific studies right at your fingertips, just like how I got them. So my thought is that the breathing techniques are concentrating prana into Saman Vayu, then connecting to Vyan Vayu and circulating the blood in a way to maintain a slightly higher core temperature that regulates how the body experiences the extreme temperatures. So let's loop back to the definition for a moment. That which is diffused throughout the whole body. So this is where I think Vishwaji's explanation comes into effect of Vyan being expansive. When the practice has enabled awareness of pranic flow, experiencing prana diffuse throughout the whole body leads to utilizing Vyan Vayu to expand and interact with more expansive koshas like Manomaya and Vijnanamaya kosha. If you haven't yet, please go check out the past episodes on the koshas, because those are important as well. So it is within the asana practice, Vyan Vayu can be observed and utilized. A posture like Mahavirabhadrasana or Warrior 2, where you're grounding through the feet to stabilize the legs, is Apana. Engaging the core to stabilize the hips and ribs is Samana. Lengthening through the spine and holding up the arms straight in a T position aligned with the legs to stabilize the upper body is Prana, Vayu. Then the integration of the pranas enables a whole body stability to feel and rebound outwards throughout the pranic body. The posture acts as a medium to help generate the output needed to bring awareness to the nervous system. The combination of posture and regulated breathing, like Ujjayi breath, may train the nervous system to become more sensitive to the rebound. Right? So all of that together, and you're holding yourself in Warrior 2, when you apply each section and you bring your body into, near perfect alignment, then the expression of that posture is going to then enable an experience of Vyan Vayu. And so that above example comes from the 200 training I did way back in 2012. And what I think is novel within the contemporary world of yoga is applying the methodology of Prana Vayus to asana practice. You don't really see that. You can go to any yoga studio and see for yourself. There is an ocean of vinyasa and acrobatic yoga. So for a random city like Edmonton, where I'm from, to have a studio that is teaching not only the Prana Vayus, but a way to experience the Vayus is impressive. Mind you, it was in a teacher training 12 years ago. And, sadly, times have changed. I've gone to several classes over even just the last few years. And I would like to think, and, it's my belief that there's been a downgrade in a lot of the yoga classes, particularly, the introduction of or the implementation of yoga philosophy within the classes just doesn't really exist. You have to really find particular teachers to get that kind of knowledge. And from what I know as well, the 200-hour teacher trainings have changed over the years to really disclude an in-depth teaching of these kinds of yoga philosophies and information. And that of itself is a paradox when the texts show that knowledge of the Vayus were pertinent and tied to pranayama practices that yielded insights into the nature of samadhi. But it's all well and good. I think it's quite natural to have a majority in anything representing a general way of its cultural significance to the Western world as an exercise, and really nothing more is the common sought-out experience, right? That's just what you're going to get for the most part. People just want to exercise. They don't really care about the beliefs. They don't care about the philosophies. They don't care about the history. It's just a part of their schedule. They look at their Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and they have their yoga class scheduled at whatever, 7 a.m., 5 p.m., whatever it works for them personally. But a small percentage of people will look behind the veil of exercise and see an entire world and history of representation. And that's really where I come into play here. I want to represent that small percentage and to convey this information in a way that's digestible and it's scientific, but it's also true to the historical context and the tradition of what yoga is, right? So a little bit of a rant there, but suffice it to say, I want to do my best to relay what I found as yogic knowledge along the path of my journey. So among the yogis in the ocean of modern yoga, it becomes my duty to find obscure concepts and bring them to the light of modern thinking. To get to the point of finishing the episode here, the Yorananda Samhita has a fairly detailed description of the Vayus that I recently found while looking through all this again. contrary to what I've said earlier. But in the Yorananda Samhita, the Vayus are named a little bit different, but you can derive the name from it. So, and this is what I really like about finding these books, because they're going to give you something that is seemingly new, but it has been there the whole time, right? So just like I said earlier, if you just go on Google and you look up Prana Vayus, you're going to get all these different blogs, and when you look through them, they all say the same thing. And so for me, that's not good enough. I want to be able to get an appreciation for this knowledge that is going to inform me on that traditional historical context. So, for example, in the Yorananda Samhita, the Prana Vayus are explained in this way, and I'm going to do my best to say these words again. This is, like Hindi or Sanskrit words, and they have a translation of them. So when you hear the word, it seems like an exotic thing, but the definitions and the descriptions are very actually precise. So the first one is Hridi Pranu Vahini Tyam, which just means the location of the first of the Pranas known as Prana is in the heart region. Number 2, Apanogu Damandale. Apana is located in the anal region. 3, Samana Bidideshtu. Samana is in the navel region. Okay, this one's a big one, so just bear with me. Udana kan tamad yata. Udan is located in the throat region. However, the throat region here actually means the extremities of the body, including the whole of the head from the throat to Brahmarandra and the limbs. So, and the 5th one, Vanu Vyapya Shariri Vyana, exists in the whole body. So it's pretty intense. Sanskrit, I find, is really interesting, and but what I like is that even though the word is like quite a mouthful, the actual definition is like very precise, right? The thing that I realized about doing this episode is I actually and technically should be releasing Udan Vayu before this one, but I started writing all this out before that thought occurred, and here we are. So Udan will be a mystery until the next episode. So what stood out from the other 5 Vayus, or the other 3 Vayus in this case, is in Vyan Vayu, there's a sub-Vayu called Dhyanajaya, which has to do with death. So Dhyanajaya Vayu remains present even after death, while some inherent internal heat remains. So it seems the Dhyanajaya is a kind of a portal that functions with the autonomic system, though trivial. The Garanda Samhita shares an analogy of sneezing as the tradition of blessing. And so they have an example here that says, in some countries it is believed and also mentioned in their text that when a person sneezes, the soul momentarily leaves the body and a devil enters. When someone sneezes, if another person is present, they will say, "Bless you." In India, when children sneeze, they say, "Shatam Jiva," live for 100 years. It is a tradition. It is difficult to say what secrets lie behind these customs. Maybe these beliefs come from a sense that at the very moment when Prana Vayu is leaving the body, a constructive thought must be put in. If this idea is correct, it shows a folk knowledge that this activity is linked with prana. So my thought is that if any insight can be obtained from this analogy is that Vyan Vayu and its sub-Vayu Dhyanajaya mediate between pranic flow of the Vayus that are expelled outward to rebound inward for a void to be filled. And the Tamil Cube definition brings up an interesting, Tamil Cube brings up an interesting definition that Dhyanajaya is a nickname for Arjuna from the Bhagavad Gita, that it is the vital air that fills the body and causes it to grow fat. In the case of Arjuna, what grows fat is his wealth, because his name meaning who attains great wealth by conquest. Dhyan meaning wealth, and Jaya meaning to conquer or victory. So does the story of Arjuna represent allegory that there's some kind of wealth within death? That we'll look at a little bit later when I get into the Ashtanga Yoga series. But what I want to end here is that we can't help but be expressive and exertive with our energy. And in our modern world of education and schooling, we're not really at all taught in any way the importance of balancing between how expressive we are and how much energy we're putting out, and how much energy we are containing within ourselves and kind of like guarding. And so what I see the benefit in learning about the pranavayus is that we're looking at these natural functions of pranic flow and how it moves throughout our body and how it moves throughout the pranamaya kosha, and how it starts to manifest in ways of something that's exerted and something that's kept within. And so the wisdom that I find in understanding Vyan Vayu and everything that I've talked about here today, which more so leads towards just kind of like examples, and so the wisdom in this is the yoga practice is going to bring awareness to the kind of autonomic urge or the kind of automatic exertion of energy that is a part of our personality or part of our behavior, and we just don't really know what consequences there are going to be out of that. And so with the example of like the sneezing and saying bless you, is that there are these kind of responses to our environment that cause us to expel energies, and that culturally we have something to not let that energy to be released, and then a void to be created, so that inadvertently something negative can be filled in that space. And as trivial as it seems, there's a subtlety to how all this works and why it's important to be keen within your mind to really observe how much you're exerting and why you want to be on reserve in some cases, right? When it comes to hanging out with your friends and you're shooting the shit and you're laughing and generally everyone's having a good time, that's all well and good, right? And where I would say like it can get subtle and it can get tricky is when that playful energy turns into a kind of name calling, a kind of shitting on each other, and it just becomes foul, and that the energy that's coming out of you is no longer a playfulness that everyone can enjoy. It's really self-centered around only you enjoying it while the people around you are being negatively affected by it, if there's like name calling or whatever, right? And then going into just like generally in society with your coworkers or acquaintances, that these yoga practices and these philosophies can help in really understanding if there's a default manipulation that is going on that you might not even know about it, that you are always angling towards trying to get something from someone, if it's women or if it's from coworkers or if it's from clients, that there's always this like kind of subconscious angle to get as much as you can out of the people around you, that applying wisdom of the Vyan Vayu, of this like circulation of energy, that if you aren't substantial in having an abundance of pranic energy within yourself, and that you're doing things that kind of like leech energy from your system, and you are constantly in this like state of a void, that you feel empty inside, and that you're going to reach out to the others around you and to the world around you to try to pull energy in to fill this void, and many times at a great cost, right? If it's like you're stealing from your grandparents or your parents, or from work. And this is really interesting because this is how the next topic that I get into, Ashtanga Yoga, when we get into the yamas and niyamas, there's one yama particularly called Ashteya, which is non-theft. And that's not just to say physical theft of property and things. It can be theft of time. It can be theft of energy. It can be theft of thoughts and ideas. And in this case with Vyan Vayu, there is an application of awareness of the circulation of energy, and that if your circulation of energy is weak and it's affecting you psychologically, and you are a narcissistic person and you're manipulative, then there's going to be this like seeking outwards to benefit out of other people's energies for yourself. And again, like this gets pretty subtle, and like I say at the end of each one of my videos, take all this with a grain of salt. Go through the websites, read other people's perspectives, then find the books, read the books from the original sources, right? So you can go as far back as the Upanishads, which goes back thousands of years. You can go as far back as like the 3 texts that I mentioned here, and again, I'm going to have links for everything. I don't want to rant on too much. I try to get to that 1 hour mark, but I think this one is just going to be a little bit shorter of an episode. I'm also almost losing my voice here, but I hope you got a good understanding of Vyan Vayu in the context of not particularly the scientific route, but the kind of more traditional historical route. And we're leading into the last Vayu, Udan Vayu. I kind of wish I did do that one, because I think I would have been able to find a little bit more information to wrap everything up, but that's okay. It is what it is. And with that, I think I'll leave it there. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, Yogi Zorananda, and send me messages, send me questions. Would love to hear what you think, hear what you think about the podcast. You can find the podcast on Instagram as well. It's just called Yoga Connection. And looking forward to getting into more concepts. Like I said, after the Vayus, I'm going to go into a whole new series on Ashtanga Yoga. I have that already planned out and kind of mapped out, and that one's going to be fairly extensive. There's a lot to go into. Ashtanga Yoga just essentially means 8-limb path, and so there's 8 main parts. The yamas and niyamas each have 5 parts, so right then and there, just with the yamas and niyamas, there's 10 episodes. And then there's 6 episodes on the other limbs. And yeah, I'm having a lot of fun doing this. Again, I had a pretty intense winter of pretty much getting sick every month. So with the spring coming around, I'm really hoping that I can stay healthy and so I can provide you guys with these episodes and we can dive into this material. I do have some guests that I'm going to have kind of peppered through all of this, so that I'm not just doing solo episodes every time by myself. And with that, thank you again for listening. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for learning about all this cool yoga stuff. And have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy.
Been on your knees for so long. Seeker, the congregation's long gone. Reaper, the priest is counting his blessings. Sleeper, it's only time you're wasting. I wipe the tears from my eyes. Oh yeah, I cried. And going on.